Hi, and welcome to today's episode of Life by Life West. I'm really excited. I'm Dr. Mary Oberstein, by the way, and I'm hosting today, and I'm really excited about today's guest. She is many things to many people. She's an extraordinary chiropractor, a great healer, an awesome mom, and just an all-around great person with lots and lots of information. I hope we get through a lot of it today. Welcome, Dr. Lindsay Hoffman.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So Lindsay, we're going to jump right in, okay? Because I have questions for you, and I just know you're a wealth of information. So first, I want you to tell the viewers just a little bit about maybe where you went to undergrad, where you went to chiropractic school, when you graduated, and just where you are now.
Sure. I am a Bay Area native, so I grew up in Northern California in a little town called San Carlos. And then I moved to San Diego. My story is kind of interesting. I moved to San Diego. I went to University of San Diego for 2 years, got completely homesick, moved back to the Bay Area, went to University of San Francisco, thought I would do something in the medical field, and ended up at Life West. It's a beautiful story, but it was definitely something out of synchronicity and just divine calling, I would say. Had no concept of chiropractic really other than a rotator cuff injury, excuse me. And then went to chiropractic school. And I could tell you the whole story, but that's where I started. I ended up moving back to San Diego. I live in North County, San Diego. My practice is in Encinitas. It's a little coastal town, surfer town, very holistic, very open-minded. And I've been in practice now for, I think I just hit the 10-year mark.
Ah, nice. That's great.
Yes.
So just give me a little, now I'm curious. How did chiropractic find you? Was it a pivotal moment?
Yes, there was absolutely a pivotal moment. I was seeking out what I wanted to do after I graduated from undergrad. Excuse me. And I'd always thought I wanted to be a surgeon. And so I was looking into that. And then I was like, this doesn't feel like it would be the lifestyle that I want. So I started looking into more holistic modalities. And my best friend at the time worked for a chiropractor. She was a front desk CA. And she's like, come talk to her. And I'm like, yeah, okay, put it on my list to do. Went in. I like this woman. She was super inspiring. And she literally said, she sat me down and she said, chiropractic is special. And I was like, okay, tell me why. And she's like, because it reconnects man the physical with man the spiritual. And that was it. I'm like, it does? That was it. And then Life West was, right across the bridge from where I was living. I walked into Life West. It was as if I stepped into this magical vortex that I knew all my dreams could come true in. And they were like, you have all the prereqs. Do you want to start in 3 weeks or in 3 months? And I'm like, wait, I could do this? And they were like, yeah, of course. So that was it. I just went.
So it sounds like chiropractic spoke to your soul.
100%. I didn't know that something could combine two things that I'm very passionate about, which is literally like physical health with spiritual health or spiritual alignment, let's call it.
Right. Wow. And so tell me a little bit about your practice. What your practice is like. And I know, because let me just share with the viewers, I know what your practice is like because when I'm in San Diego, I come in and get checked by you. So
yeah.
But I think it's one of my favorite practices I've ever been in. Yeah, the space is so healing that, it's incredible. So just share a little bit.
Okay. I'll give you a little bit more of that journey for me because I think it ties it in. So I went to chiropractic school originally after I decided I didn't want to be a surgeon. I thought maybe I'd be OBGYN or nurse practitioner in women's health. Found ICPA, Jeannie Ohm, spoke to the school, lit me up. So I did the whole course. I started a practice with the ICPA as my platform. I had a banging pediatric and pregnancy practice, even though I didn't have a kid. And I was like, you know what? I'm just doing this. I got out of my own way. I did end up having a child and it spoke to me even more. So for the first 7 years of practice, I had one location. I'm actually just down the street from that location now, but I had one location. I practiced with my husband at the time. It was very family style. It served my soul. And then I reached a point where I really wanted to change. I needed a change. I went to a network spinal seminar And I remembered how passionate I had been about network during school. And I was like, okay. And I gave myself a deadline and I gave myself a vision. And I went to the current space that I'm in now for my own care with a doc who had been practicing there. And he turned and looked at me and he goes, you know, if you ever wanted to move your practice here, I only practice 2 days a week. And I was like, wait, so what's your timeline? And he gave me the date that I told myself I would be switched over into something different. And it was full alignment, full yes. And so I've been there for 2 years now. And my practice feels like the vortex that I would say Life West had on me is now how I practice. It makes me want to cry.
It makes me want to cry. That's how I felt stepping into your office. And I've been in practice for 35 years. When I stepped into your office, it felt like a vortex to me where I wanted to cry. I wanted to sleep there. I wanted to dance. But when I walked into the space, it was just such a healing, and I know this sounds so metaphysical, but it was such a healing place. I didn't want to leave. And I mean, we talked about that, you know? Yeah. So, you know, it's interesting how you're so connected that you really are like innate driven, soul driven.
Yes.
It sounds like you don't even go looking for it. You don't,
no.
You know, I'm sure you spend some time in your brain.
Yeah.
Trying to figure things out. Mm-hmm. But it sounds like you're just so aware that when your soul speaks, you're listening.
Yes. Yeah. I was exactly thinking that this morning. It's like when that message comes through, whatever it is, I get out of the way because I know that it's going to be in alignment for what the highest and best is. Yeah. And I will say I've had 2 mantras for a long time that I think are really pivotal. And I started this first one was kind of in between undergrad and chiropractic school. And I was like, whatever I do in life, I want to leave every person better off every time, no matter what. Mm-hmm. And that's a foundation. Wow. And then now really the bigger one is, okay, what's in the highest and best good, not just for me, but for all. How do you want me to serve? And then I just let it unfold because I know that on that piece, it's like, if we're really showing up in our fullness, magic will happen. And if we're trying to fight it or we're contracted or we're, you know, I love the brain. I'm a doctor. I mean, we study neurology, of course, but I think the mental constructs sometimes keep us contained and confined in a place of safety. And when we can surrender to the bigness of what is possible, that's when it shows up and meets us. And so to me, like where my practice is, what it feels like now, I actually took over the space. I like run the space. I was like, who am I? There's multiple doctors. There's a shaman. There are multiple acupuncturists. It fuels itself. And I just feel like I get to help facilitate that kind of unfoldment and I get to keep showing up. And that's really, it just inspires me. And as people keep showing up and then I just keep getting out of my own way, like I have the mental, but I just kind of put it aside and I let the energy really speak to what is, again, like in that highest and best good, because I think if we can just tap into innate, we already know. Yeah,
yes. You're right. We already know. We know that we know. Mm-hmm. The hard part sometimes is getting out of your way because we've been kind of conditioned to like figure it out.
Yes.
Right? Figure it out. You've got to like, you know, think about it and choose, like do what's right for you and all these kind of things when it's kind of like counterintuitive.
Right.
To say like, release it, let it go. Like my word for 2021 is surrender.
Yes.
And I always thought like, well, I'm pretty good about that. I'm not a controlling person, but it's to that level surrender where you just really are allowing it to happen.
Right.
And I think you go through phases. Like I could think of times in my life where I was really good at that. Mm-hmm. And then got a little constricted with certain things and changes and stuff. So, but what's cool about your work is like all those people you're touching, both, you know, in all the different realms, not just physically, is like you're allowing them to have that experience without giving them this, like without pushing the experience on them or talking to them about it. It's like, you know, your work allows them to have the same effect. If that's kind of what I'm hearing you say.
Yes.
Well, I have a question. So in your practice, because like this, I guess now I kind of want to know like how you show up in your practice, like what is it that allows you to do this work and then bring it into practice? Like how do you show up?
Okay. If you can finish the question, there's
I was going to say, like, or if there's a word or something that you think of that, or a mantra or something that helps you show up a certain way in your practice.
Sure. At the beginning of my career, I did some coaching with a few different people. And I remember the one thing that I thought was the most poignant was like, when you show up to your office, whatever's happening in your personal life, it stays at the door. And that, I don't always connect with that, but I remember that all the time. And I also remember in the moments in my life, in my personal life, or just challenges that we come against or up to, the times where I'm like, I don't want to show up. I'm like, no, this is the time to show up. This is the exact time to show up, because I'm not in my head. I'm not trying to figure it out. I feel like practice is called practice because we're still practicing. We're practicing being us, being in alignment, being the doctor. I feel like oftentimes this kind of like patient-doctor relationship, I've changed that a lot. And I think that was really big for me, because I look at people now more as clients, not because I don't take healing seriously, but really more because we're partnering together, and you're here because you want to learn, and you want to learn about how to empower yourself to move through physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, neurological challenges. And I will partner with you. I feel like that's really the doctor and the medicine of the future. So when I'm in alignment with that, even in my own self, like I seek out a lot of healing. I think
Yes.
Another alumnus, I heard him speak yesterday. He was talking about, you want other people to heal yourself, take it seriously. And so all those things come into play. And then when I'm in that entrainment room, when I'm in that healing room, I check myself a lot, because in the technique that I practice, it's really important to make sure when you step up to somebody and you're in their field, their bioenergetic field, it's not about me anymore. It's about them.
Yes.
And so if I'm thinking about, did the CA ask them about payment? Did they get scheduled? Where's my water, my iced tea, whatever? I'm like, oh, no, back up. So I check myself, because I take it very seriously. And I think as practitioners, when someone's in alignment, when they're putting their hands on you. We know. Yes. They know. Even if they don't tell you, they know. Yeah. So even if it's the end of the day and I'm like, I've seen so many people, and I'm like, at the end, I've just put it aside for like that one last person. And I swear to you, this happened this week. The last person's like, wow, text me after, wow, that was amazing, whatever you did. And I'm like, holy shit. Because I think we come up to the edge, and then we go, can I do it? And it's like, yes, just keep showing up. Just keep showing up. Trust.
And staying present.
Yes.
And I love that, because it's like you finish strong.
Yeah.
That's important, because that's tough in practice. Yes. I remember long days where it's like the end of the night, where it's like, I knew when I need to stay present was when I looked at my watch.
Yep.
Then I stopped wearing a watch. Yep. Because it was like, I just was starting getting tired. My body was starting to hurt a little bit. And then I would immediately be like, that is not fair. Exactly. That very last person who gets on the table, which usually was the team, right? Right. That last adjustment's going to be my best, Yes. And I think Sid Williams used to say that. Yeah. And it would be too easy to just be like, okay, well, I'm almost done. I'm hungry. Yep. Let me just check you real quick. Yep. But that's a commitment, I think, that you just spoke to, that you make to yourself. And I was talking to a student a couple of weeks ago and said, he said, yeah, well, practice, I know. Practice is practice. It's called practice for a reason. You're practicing on people. And I kind of cringed inside. And I kind of cringed, because I was like, well, how would the person on the table feel about that? Like, I'm practicing on you, right? So I was like, no, you're practicing on yourself. 100%. You're practicing. And he went, oh, yeah. Yes. He goes, yeah. Cultivating. Always cultivating. And I want to say one little other thing, because I realized I was doing that in practice. And then I checked myself, because I was coming home at certain times, starving, depleted. I've just talked to people all day. And I'm like, wow, here's the other side of it. Here's the other practice. So I've really this year given myself a lot of space in between things, because I'm like, let's do all the things. I've given myself transition time, so that leaving from practice and coming home, like, how am I also going to show up in this element? It's not the place for me to dump and to be frazzled and there's no dinner on the table. There's the things that we want to say.
I really checked myself, because I think practice teaches, and then practice is also about practicing in life.
Yeah.
It's not just in that container, even though that's where we show up, we think we show up in that optimal place. And it also is really, what are the practices that we're cultivating? What do I need to do to get in alignment? For me,
Yes.
meditation, journaling, really taking time and transitions in between things. And I think that's important, because we are harnessing and utilizing so much energy. If we aren't filled up energetically, it gets sticky, it gets
Yes.
gross, and people see that and feel that. So I think that's our responsibility.
I agree 100%. And you've been on the table yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know what that feels like. And I agree with you 100% when people they may not know what it is, but the disconnect is there.
Yeah.
Whether it's spoken about, it's felt.
Yep.
And that's such great advice, because especially for a new chiropractor, just in practice, it's like, go, go, go. I got to work hard. Right.
Yes.
And
yes.
I think that's one thing. I think this generation is a little bit better about this, about self-care.
Yes.
Yeah. But you're right. You can't, and my generation wasn't that great about that. It was about volume and numbers. And I remembered after a long day of practice going home, and Ron would be home and the 3 girls would be there, and I'd walk in, and my first thing was food.
Yeah.
I need food. And they would notice that, they kind of told me this later on in life, but you'd come home and be quiet.
Yeah.
I'd be real quiet.
Yes.
And it was because it was there was so much coming at me during the day of hearing people talk, and then just not that I talk a lot in the practice.
Sure.
I'm actually stayed pretty quiet in the practice.
Sure.
While I'm, adjusting people, but I would come home and I just needed I don't think I ever said nobody talked. Everyone stopped talking, but it was just I just needed to get grounded, fuel my body, take my shoes off. Mm-hmm. Then it was I'd sit on the couch, okay, come here, give me hugs. It was I had to fill my cup back up, because I felt sometimes it get a little depleted.
Yeah.
And an old wise chiropractor said to me once, and I don't know if this is even still relevant, I do it if I'm adjusting, even on mission trips. And that's pretty grueling, right? Because we're adjusting so much. I can feel myself slipping. I know when I'm less present is when I've noticed all of a sudden I'm having these thoughts about what I'm doing the next day, or I might just start drifting away. Right. And a chiropractor told me once that if that ever happens, how you stay present in the adjusting room? I said, how? He said, just leave your body, go up into the corner of the room and watch yourself adjust. And he said it at first, it didn't make sense. I was
right.
How's that going to help me stay present?
Yeah.
I do it to this day. I even do it now when I don't adjust. If somebody's talking to me and I'm kind of feeling like I'm slipping, I will go up in a corner. It's always over my right shoulder for some reason. I go up in the corner of the room, and then I watch me with this person. I'm so present because I'm observing, but I can't have any other thought other than being in it.
Yeah.
And it only takes a split second for me to do that in an adjusting room, to then I'm back present again. And then I want to be.
Right.
It feels oh, this feels good. I like it here. So now I'm present again.
Exactly.
Or the other thing is just my word is cancel. If all of a sudden I'm adjusting someone and they're just talking about they had a flat tire today, and I go, oh, that's right. I need to take my car to Discount Tire, because I immediately just, I don't know if it's innate, subconscious, something yells out, cancel. And I'm cancel, right back in there.
That's a hypnobirthing technique too.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, that was a hypnobirthing. They say cancel, delete. Anytime somebody says something that you don't like during birth, you're nope, I'm not talking about that. It's do. Yeah. Move it aside. Yeah.
So I think that the audience would be really interested in this. Talking about, you had the practice with your ex-husband.
Yep.
And then talk about pivot. And of course, with COVID, right? Sure. There's been a lot of pivoting in 2020 and still. You had to do a major pivot and basically reinvent yourself. And that's kind of what I see with you.
Yeah.
You're not a totally different person, but you certainly reinvented yourself.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that?
Sure. Yeah.
I just think it'll be a golden nugget.
Okay. So I feel there are seasons in life. We talk about different seasons, right? We go through student, doctor, mother, maybe teacher, maybe more of this wise woman kind of situation later on. So those are different archetypes, essentially. We're wearing different roles. And when I first started in practice, I was like this young, like, I'm going to make my life. I'm going to go out and do this. I had, all this energy. How old was I? I was 28 years old. I moved to a brand new town. I didn't know anybody. And I looked at all the ways to market myself. And I just said, no, I'm going to be me and I'm going to show up as me. And I did that. And it worked. And it was authentic. Mm-hmm. And I really feel like when we go through times in life where we are called to be in a different place in our own authenticity, where we're kind of complete on something, and there's this like urge or yearning or soul calling for something more, something different. I love adjusting people. And then I was like, but what if I could do it different or better? Like, what's the next thing? What's the next golden nugget? And I feel like when you have passion that drives you, you never have to be stuck in a standstill. So, a lot of what we have been taught, I think just in our society, is that we play these certain roles and we're expected to show up in these certain ways and have these certain conversations. And it's very predictable because it creates comfort. When you spoke earlier about controlling a little bit during times of transition, it's really like about fear, because we're fearing the unknown. And so we kind of go, okay, I'm going to create I'm going to create something that I know is known, and I'm going to show up in this way, or I'm going to try to control this because it's safety for me. It's comfort. Mm-hmm. But as we keep growing, I think we kind of get to this precipice. And a lot of what I've studied is that the magic happens on the edge of chaos. Wow. So we go through times where we create stability, right? So we create stability. I had this stable practice. It was great. And then I went, there's something different. I got to do something different. And I got a taste, and it was like, ooh, that's really, really scary. Like, that's so scary to have to reinvent myself. What would I do? And it was like, I want to run away, but I have to see if I can do it. So this like curiosity, and it's like that edge of chaos. We all have that. That's why people go skydiving. That's why we do all kinds of weird things as humans, where it's like, logically that makes no sense. No, but we have to, because we don't know what our humanity is capable of until we really get to the edge of that. And so I gave myself permission. I just got out of my own way. I was like, I created what I wanted. I got it 100%. I set out for something I thought was unattainable. A new doc in a new town, no children, no birth experience. I created a pediatric and pregnancy practice. I was a doula. I was called to home births. It was awesome. And then I went, all right, what do I really want? What I really want is to be in my own soul alignment and light other people up so they can impact the world in their most optimal, aligned, soul purpose driven selves. How do I do that? And so I just kept going. I started Network Spinal. I changed locations. I was very upfront with people. I still have some people that came from my old practice and they've stayed, and they were like, wait, you're not cracking us anymore? No, we're going to try this. And they've had amazing results. I've had people with me my entire career. I've had a handful of people who have stayed for my entire career through every transition and change, through every price increase. I mean, I started, it was unlimited $150 a month. That's the price now of 2 visits.
Yeah. And they stayed.
And they stayed. Because I was committed to value. I was committed to them evolving. And I really believe in that. And I won't settle for anything less. So I scared the bejesus out of myself and totally redid it. No idea what I was doing.
and it's what I call that is like the path that you're on. And again, I know a lot of people right now going through this. It's called the life of shoulds. SHOULD, right? Is like when you get fearful and you kind of feel a calling, like I'm in that phase right now, like I'm not in practice right now. And I've talked to you about that. Like, it's easy to go back into this comfortable life of shoulds. Well, what should I be doing right now? Well, I'm not old enough to retire, so I really should be practicing. And and I got this word from you, and which is curious, stay curious. Like, what's my calling right now? And I'm curious and kind of excited as to what that is, but I'm not using my brain to try to figure it out because it just gets in the way. Yes. And then it feels like the should stuff again.
Yes.
The worst question you ask yourself is, what should I be doing right now?
Exactly. And then that comes across when you're interfacing with patients or clients, and it's not trustable. So I feel like really what's necessary is okay, what is this moment calling for? Can I tap into that innate enough to really just be able to speak to that and then get every expectation about the future out of the way, because all we have is right now. And so, all of these like universal principles of like, what do I want? Well, I want this, and this. I want, eventually I want a ranch. I want blah, 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 blah. I don't know when that's going to happen, and I'm not attached to it, but I know it will show up if it's what I really want. So you plant the seed and then you just let it grow. And we're not going to come back and be like, hey, you're growing. Doesn't work that way.
We all know that doesn't work.
No. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know we have a 5 minutes left, and I don't want to end without you. It's just something I've learned from you. I want you to talk about the feminine energy, and I know you could probably give an 8-hour seminar about this.
I'm going to. I literally am going to.
There you go. So I must have picked up on that, and sign me up because I would like to do it.
Perfect. Yes. Okay. Awesome.
If you could just speak to that a little bit, just whatever you want to share, because I know it's all golden.
Okay. So a lot of our conversation just now really taps into that. The biggest thing that I've really learned, and I got very curious about masculine, feminine dynamics, and it's not just men and women. We all have both, right? So our driver side, our purpose-driven side is very masculine. Feminine is the other side. Feminine is present moment. Feminine is curiosity. Feminine is non-committal, which I found so interesting as I started studying this. Feminine is, today I'm drinking coffee, tomorrow it might be tea, some days I want bulletproof, maybe I'll be vegan. Actually, you know what? Like, I want Thai food. So the feminine is always mutable and changing. And I think a lot of the times when we're in a practice and we're in a container and we're supposed to show up a certain way, we shrink that. But that energy, the omega energy, the feminine energy is like, ooh, but what can I light up even within this container? Because we need containers. We need, I have office hours. I show up to my office hours. I have certain responsibilities. I'm going to go do those. But what's the secret sauce and flavor I can bring that is that excitement, that curiosity, that present moment that's really non-committal? Because that real true taste of the different flavors of life is in that curiosity. And we forget because we're like, well, I got to go do all these things. But the fun, the joy, the bliss piece is like that really like, oh, that bite of food was amazing. Oh my gosh. And did you see the look on her face when I gave her this gift or when she, whatever. There's this magic that sits behind everything. And I feel like as women, and especially as women healers, women practitioners, we get to inspire that in the field of consciousness, no matter what's happening, no matter if it's COVID, no matter if political seasons are really tense, no matter if we don't know what the future holds, we still have right now, and we still can do these things together, or even by ourselves, obviously, where we allow ourselves to be called into what's available in that moment. And so I feel like that's really like this, the tingliness that we feel, excitement piece. And it really drives us to allow the masculine to come in and create new containers. A lot of, and I'll just speak one tiny thing of astrology, because I also find that interesting. A lot of the eclipses at the end of last year were, how are we creating new structures? And the solstice was this as well. How are we creating new structures for the ways that we want to experience ourselves in our life? It doesn't have to be an old model. It can be completely new. And so I've a lot of my female friends who are also chiropractors and practitioners, we've gotten together in a group together because we're talking about that exact conversation is how are we showing up, and what are the structures that we are creating that are going to serve us the most, and therefore serve our people the most, and therefore serve humanity the most, because that's the big calling. That's the big question. And we can do it with the curiosity of feminine and the structure of masculine.
Wow. It's like after this call, I'm going to take notes. I just need to sit with that information and let it I want it to sink in.
Percolate, marinate. That's my favorite word, marinate.
Okay, because it's a lot, and it's just it makes sense, but it's just like so much, right?
Yeah.
And but it's so beautiful because it's like, all I was hearing as you're talking, like you just gave permission to people to do things, and and it's so beautiful, but it's so scary.
Yeah,
and
it's
beautiful.
It's the brink of instability. It's the brink of chaos. It's the like, ah! But then I feel like a lot of times, and I was thinking about this before we got on this call, we all need a little bit of permission, a little bit of validation to be able to show up in our fullness. And usually for people who, like us, who are very external, we need just a little bit. Like someone to say, like, what your intro, like that's going to feed me for like the next 2 weeks, because it was like, wow, okay, it's being received. Now, what else can I bring?
Yes.
Because something is being received here and I'm given permission to keep going.
And it's a lot harder when you have to just assume that you're making a difference, or assume that it's happening. But you're right. When you get that little bit of validation, it's like monumentous. True?
Yes.
And it's not in a bad way, like, oh, you needed the validation. No. It's more like, to me, it's more like that was a sign.
Yep.
You asked for a sign, you got a sign today.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. So when we end up, it's a lot. It's awesome, but it's a lot. So we end these episodes with 2 questions. The first question: what would you give yourself when you were a chiropractic student? So student Lindsay, what advice would you give yourself now with your wisdom?
Okay, so I feel like for me, the biggest thing really is to own this kind of leading by example and living a way that's in alignment in a lifestyle, but also in an energetic that's true and authentic. Because I feel like a lot of times as students, we take all this information and all this jargon and we're trying to convince people because we're so excited, which is awesome. But the problem with that is we tend to repel people. So I think that this piece of surrender, 2021 surrender, soften into the knowledge that it's all going to work out and people will get exactly what they need when they need it, which is just enough to inspire them to do the next thing and take the next step. It doesn't have to be like, you memorize boards information and then you want to tell literally all your neighbors. Like, no, don't do that. So really soften into it and let it marinate. We all need that pause to marinate, and then trust what comes through is exactly what's called for.
Wow. Okay. And this, I don't know if your advice would be exactly the same for this next one, which is like, what advice would you give yourself when you were in practice for a couple of years? So you weren't a student anymore, you got into practice. What would you tell yourself now if you could speak to like yourself when you were 3 to 5 years in?
Okay, so I think I thought that I had to be an expert of all things I ever talked about. And I was like, I have to know exactly what I'm talking about. And I would obsess about conversations I had with people, or like, this baby's ear infection, did it work? Did she get enough? And I would just freak out. And I really think that people don't need to know that you're an expert. They need to know how much you care. And it doesn't mean that you have to spend a ton of time with them. I think we confuse time and care. And so I had a hard time doing that at the beginning. And I think I wasted a lot of my energy because I was over caring and over giving of my time. I think for me, my own personal adjustments and trainments, the most poignant ones were very short, very simple. There was a few words and that was it. And it marinated and percolated beautifully. So I would remember that piece because it has to, again, be in alignment with how we show up. And also that you don't have to be perfect. Just show up, just be authentic, do what comes through, and then leave it alone. Like, back up, go in the other room. It's okay. You have other things to do. It's okay. They'll be fine.
I'm feeling a lot of the students watching this and the new docs are going to be like, oh my God, like I just had weight lifted off my shoulder. Like almost like it's that easy in a way. Like, I'm not saying it's super easy starting a new practice, but
yes,
and
it's way easier than we make it. It's way easier than we make it. And when we do it that way and it's simple, the person wants to come back versus us bombarding time, energy, care. And they're like, oh, this is too much.
Yes.
Simple.
Yes. Just let people have their own experience of you and of the work that's being done.
Yeah. Because it's care. It's not a one-stop shop.
Right.
To commit to care, which is indefinite, really. So we don't got to sell the car at the first visit. Just show up. Right.
Well, thank you. I know we're right at that hour, that time. Thank you. I can't thank you enough for just sharing all this information, sharing your heart, your soul, and our mission with these Life by Life West episodes is, I hold this vision at least, where if one person grabs one thing that they implement in their life and in their practice, like the changes could be monumental.
Yes.
And you know how that works, where people do, like they hear something, and if it speaks to them, they just grab it.
Yes.
And your information will be below here.
Perfect.
Yes. And if anyone wants to reach out to
Absolutely.
you with questions or just to connect with you, hopefully you don't get like too many.
I'll get to them all. This is
okay.
why
Perfect.
I'm here
Perfect.
to serve. So I will get to them.
Thank you. And you know I adore you.
I love you.
And to our audience, thank you also for watching this episode and being a part of the mission of Life West, which is creating a brighter future for humanity. So until next week, stay healthy, be happy, get checked, and have a great day. Bye.
And stay curious.
Stay curious.